only handle the money. It is the customer who pays the wages. Henry Ford. Good morning, everyone. My partners, Morgan Hopkins, Madeline Strayman, and I, Payton Broussard, are for the resolution. The United States federal minimum wage. Before I dive in, let's define some terms I will use in this round. Tag this as observation 1 definition. Abolish, formally put an end to a system, practice, or institution. Oxford Online Dictionary. Minimum wage, the lowest wage permitted by law or by special agreement. Oxford Online Dictionary. Wage, a fixed regular payment typically paid on a daily or weekly basis made by employer to an employee, especially to a manual or unskilled worker. Oxford Online Dictionary. Another definition of wage is reward. Fruit is reward. Fruit, I don't know that word. That which is given or received in return. 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Employment, the condition of having paid work. Now that we have defined some important terms, let's look at some major problems that are present in the status quo. I will prove that there are 3 major harms in the current system that need to be addressed and resolved. Tag this as observation 2 harms. Harm 1. Higher wages means less hired workers. Quote, Twin Cities saw massive decline in restaurant jobs after passing minimum wage increase. New Fed paper shows. www.foundationforeconomicseducation.com. Summary. Citizens lose their job because employers don't have the funds to compensate them. According to foundationforeconomicseducation.com, when the price of any product goes up, people buy less of it. Minimum wage increases causes the price of labor to go up, and when that happens, employers hire less labor. The common misconception is that minimum wage legislation only affects how much employers pay, but it also affects who they employ. The sad irony is that the beneficial wage effects of minimum wage hike are largely felt by better skilled, better experienced, better educated workers, while the detrimental employment effects are largely felt by less advantaged workers, requiring businesses to pay a higher wage forces employers to jettison their least valuable workers in order to afford the more valuable ones. Harm 2. Most states have their own minimum wage. Quote, the Department of Labor is that the head of all wage policies in the United States and was directly responsible for establishing the minimum wage through the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Since 1938, the Department of Labor has continued to use the Fair Labor Standards Act to raise the federal minimum wage and control this issue across the United States. Currently, the minimum wage acts in the compensate of can be more than, but not less than. When held in jurisdiction with the minimum wages of these states, this means that whichever minimum wage is greater, state or federal, is a minimum wage that applies to each jurisdiction. Source, liberty.edu. Summary. It's redundant for the federal government to also have a minimum wage law. It gives the government unnecessary control. Harm 3. Businesses must charge more to finance the raising minimum wage. Quote, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the Wage Act of 2023 plans to raise the minimum wage to 17 and an hour by 2029. Will Keaton holds an MA in economics and said on investor.com, companies charge more for their goods to pay higher wages, and the higher wages also increase the price of goods in the broader market. As said by Foundation for Economic Education, we should not raise the minimum wage. We should abolish it altogether. The common response to this is that employers will immediately lower wages across the board, but to make that assertion, one must ignore the fact that 97 to 99% of the American workforce already earns above the minimum wage. Summary: higher wages increase the cost of goods, so no one ever gets ahead. Now that we have recognized some major problems in our current system, let's see the solution in our plan. Tag this as observation 3 plan. Abolishing the minimum wage would reduce unemployment, encourage local government, and allow businesses to maintain appropriate prices. Mandate: the United States should abolish the federal minimum wage. The affirmative team will be resolving these problems by significant reform with our policies toward minimum wage in these ways. Agency: Congress and President would sign and update the law to authorize and abolish the federal minimum wage. Current policy would change from having a federal minimum wage to relying on individual states' legislative bodies to pass their own agreed upon wage laws. Funding: no funding will be necessary. Now that we have gone over the solution to our major problems, let's look at the benefits that will come once it is implied. There are 3 major benefits that will come once our proposed plan is in place. Tag this as observation 4 advantages. Advantage 1. Abolishing the federal minimum wage would reduce unemployment. Quote, unemployment as a whole would most likely decrease. Sweden, Italy, Denmark, Finland, Cyprus, and Austria do not have minimum wage laws. What they did have was lower levels of unemployment than the rest of the European Union. Businesses would also be able to hire young workers for lesser wages. They will go on to have increased wages due to enhanced experience. Source: universityofmichigan.org. Summary: no minimum wage equals more happy workers employed. Advantage 2. State legislators could decide their own wage laws. Quote, states could pass their own laws to make the wage higher, equal to or lower than the federal law, but they can't make other changes that overrule federal law. Source: